Gotta say, it's fantastic.
Say that again.
Fantastic Four: First Steps is a solid entry for the MCU and the best Fantastic Four movie to date, though considering the competition, that's not really a difficult achievement. I was hyped for this movie when the trailers first dropped, then got a little weary after the reports of panic reshoots and bad test audience reactions. However, in the end, after watching the movie, I can say that I very much enjoyed this film and definitely have quite a few thoughts on it. So let's get right into those thoughts. I'll just say right off the bat that the things I liked about this movie, I really liked. But at the same time, the flaws that it has are also pretty distracting and noticeable and hold it back from being a great movie in my opinion. Starting with the positives, the retro-futuristic aesthetic of the world is such a visual treat and is so distinct from every other Marvel project, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the film. The world feels very fleshed out and unique, and one part that I really enjoyed was how much the film actually made the citizens of this world feel like real people. They don't come across as nameless, meaningless, faceless, hardly relevant background characters. The Fantastic Four have an almost personal, familial relationship with the people of New York, so when they're seen in danger or cheering on their favorite heroes, it feels much more impactful. Speaking of those heroes, I thought that the character work in this movie was some of the best I have seen in a really long time from Marvel. The Fantastic Four themselves are done so well. They each have their own distinctive personalities that are enjoyable. They all get a significant amount of development, and their relationships with each other are vibrant and charming. It's just a good time watching them on screen. They're such a joy to watch and root for in this movie. Pedro Pascal does a brilliant job as Mr. Fantastic. Maybe I should have said a fantastic job.
Say that again.
Perfectly bringing to life a character who feels personally responsible over not being able to solve every problem his family and community faces with his intellect, and as he struggles to adjust to a big change in his life with his new baby Franklin on the way. Vanessa Kirby Sue Storm is great in this film as well, depicted as both a powerful combatant and loyal and unwavering in her love and commitment to Reed and her child as well as the team. Johnny actually gets a surprising amount of screen time and things to do in this plot, and refreshingly, he does not come across as an annoying or quippy sidekick comic relief like the stereotypical Marvel comic relief character, but instead he feels like a valuable asset to the team who is a completely fleshed out character first, but just also happens to be funny and makes the occasional quip. I'd say that Ben Grimm probably gets the short end of the stick in regards to the main cast, but even he gets a ton of great character moments where his personality and his unique individual relationships with Reed, Sue, and Johnny get to shine. Overall, I just really enjoyed the main ensemble here, some of the most fun and likable characters I can recall from a Marvel movie, and the characters and aesthetic of this world were definitely some of the strongest aspects of this movie, and I cannot praise the movie enough for how much of a joy it was to see all of these things play out on screen. Sticking with the characters, I will say that Galactus is one of my favorite villains from any MCU film ever, and that is mostly due to just the impressive way they built him up and depicted him on screen here. He doesn't have a lot of scenes, but every scene that he is in just feels massive and grandiose, and his inevitable approach to the Earth creates a very compelling countdown that gives the second half of this film great tension. However, for me, a lot of this film's flaws come out in that second half, and I'll touch on those more in a bit, but for now, let me just say that the first half of this movie, dude, I was literally wondering to myself if Fantastic Four was going to be one of the best Marvel movies of all time. That's how much I love the positives about this film. There's this one sequence in the first half of the film that was so tense and tightly edited and perfectly executed that it just has you on the edge of your seat the entire time. In my humble opinion, it's far and away the best sequence in the film, but at the same time, it kind of leads to a disappointment in a way because the film never hits that level of adrenaline pumping cinema again. So in a way, it almost peaks in its first 40 minutes, and that's kind of sad to see that it never reaches that level of just pure cinema again. It almost kind of reminded me of the Burj Khalifa scene in MI4, like it's just such a masterful scene that it kind of overshadows the rest of the film after that point. Michael Giacchino's score is amazing here, elevating every scene it touches. The man is a legend, and he continues to add to his highly esteemed legacy with his work in Fantastic Four: First Steps. I've talked a lot about what I liked about this movie, and that's because I liked a lot about it, but as I've been alluding to throughout this review, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. There were definitely a few very noticeable flaws here, mostly in relation to the plot and pacing, and one character in particular, the Silver Surfer. The film sets up a potential storyline with her and Johnny, and teases at her backstory a little bit, but then neither of those things end up really going anywhere, and it really feels like some missed opportunities to flesh out her character a little more. Like, that wouldn't be as much of an issue for me if it didn't feel like they were hinting at giving her character more depth, but then, just not following through on that. So as it stands, it almost feels like some scenes were meant to do that, but then those scenes were just removed from the film entirely, and because of that, there is just setup that doesn't really get a satisfying payoff. For example, there's this one sequence where there's supposed to be this super emotional moment for the Silver Surfer, but because we've hardly gotten to know anything about her or her backstory, it just comes across as out of place and wacky. It doesn't feel like a compelling scene, but almost more so as a scene that just happens to progress the plot, when it could have been so much more than that. And in regards to the plot, I will say that if you're looking for it, there are definitely some pretty major plot conveniences that happen in order to allow the story to progress the way it does. I won't get into specifics for the sake of spoilers, but yeah, the story is not some amazingly written, impeccably tight plot with no errors and perfect logic, but like I said before, it does kind of make up for that for me, just because of how great the character work is here. The characters really do carry a somewhat lackluster plot, in my opinion. There is an instance in this movie where super smart Reed Richards says one of the dumbest things you could in that situation, so I guess Reed saying dumb stuff is just a canon event for his character or something.
Wanda, Black Bolt could destroy you with one whisper from his mouth.
Say that again.
Additionally, there are some really weird editing choices or pacing issues at points, and I think it's partially due to the emergency reshoots, but regardless, whatever the case, there are definitely a few times where scenes awkwardly cut, and you can't really tell when this is taking place or how much time has passed between scenes. Also, I have a couple of gripes with the finale of the film. Like, I know they have to tone down comic book Galactus' powers in order to give the FF a legitimate chance to beat him, but yeah, I won't say more on that to avoid spoilers, but yeah, I'll just say that there's a moment in the climax that just doesn't feel realistic or satisfying due to how unbelievable it comes across. But overall, I really enjoyed Fantastic Four: First Steps, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who likes superhero movies. This was my favorite Marvel movie since Endgame by a pretty wide margin, definitely a step in the right direction for the MCU, and I seriously think that if it cleaned up some of its flaws, this could have been easily an all-timer in regards to Marvel's projects. That's how much I liked what this film did well. Again, I really liked what it did well. But what did you think of the Fantastic Four? If you haven't seen it, are you excited to see it? Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed my review, and if you did, then I'd really appreciate it if you left a like and subscribed. Also, don't forget to check out my Fan 4-Stick review if you like funny movie reviews that make fun of bad movies, because then you'd probably enjoy that review. Anyways, I'll catch you all on the next one. I hope you have a great day.